And welcome to today's session. Charmaine and I are going to take you through what we hope that you are already relatively comfortable with, but just need a little more practice on. So today's session, we're looking at how to use the OurVLE tools and link those tools to the pedagogy, because our job is about teaching. Okay, and when all is said and done, if you remember yesterday, we were reminded that the tools is just that, it's an assist. It is, the focus is on teaching. Okay, so we're going to look at how to use these different tools in teaching. And of course, the computer decided to hang. All right, here we go. Now, on OurVLE, there are about 7 different resources. Okay, so the resources is what you use to present the content, and you have, and well, I think most of you are familiar with them. I highlighted the ones that tend to be used very often. If you want to ask a question about any of them, please feel free to do so, because this is a session where we tear everything down, break it down to pieces so that you understand perfectly. Now, I have my screen on full view, so I am not seeing the chat or the raised hands just now. So I'm going to ask Charmaine to help me out as much as possible. So if you have any queries, just ask and I will see how best we can assist.
Yes, I do. I'm seeing, and that is my intention.
Okay. All right, good. So we have each of these resources play a particular role. All right, so the book is several pages where you can use text and information and multimedia and hyperlinks and so forth. A file is a single file, whether it's a text file, an audio file, a PowerPoint file, any kind of file, but it's usually just one file that is uploaded at a time. The folder, as you know, can hold several files, several different types of files. The label we use to separate or to highlight information. The page is a single page that you, the teacher, create right there. And if the students don't have to download it, this is ideal. And in the page, you can put in your hyperlinks, your text, your images, your audio. And the URL is simply a link to a website or a web page or somewhere else that you want the students to go. Now, the activities, there are significantly more activities in OurVLE than resources, because the aim of this Moodle platform that we call OurVLE is to engage students more in learning. And as such, we have many, many, many more activities than we do resources. And we use activities for different things. The ones that I have highlighted here, again, are the ones that tend to be used more. Any questions on the ones that are here? So I don't have to go through all of them. Guys?
I haven't seen any questions so far. Colleagues, any questions?
Okay, wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Is it on these or how these work? Which one of them?
Is there, I mean, you're comfortable with knowing what they are and how they work?
The difficult one.
No,
sorry.
I'm a little concerned about the quiz. You're going to show us how to set up these quizzes?
We're going to go through how to set up, yes.
Okay, all right.
All right.
So we're good.
Okay, there's a question.
That's the thing I was going to ask, that people need to know about the quiz, because that's the one that gives people the most trouble.
All right, so we're going to go through setting up a quiz.
Michelle,
yes.
There's a question. Any idea why? This is from Craig. Hi, Craig, how are you doing? He asked, any idea why survey is not frequently used? Michelle is asking, what is choice?
All right, so
and what is
and
what else did you type, Michelle? SCORM.
All right.
Yes.
So to answer Craig's question, why is survey not used a lot? I don't know why it is not used a lot. I suspect that it's because it is already a predetermined activity that is set up, so it already has certain questions that you would use. I find that the feedback on the questionnaire isn't listed here because it's not among the OurVLE activities. Tend to be used more because teachers get to put in the sort of questions that they want to ask they tailor these activities better than they would the survey. I suspect that that is why. So the choice is an activity that allows students to select a particular response. And we're going to set up a choice because it's usually ideal if you have a subject area or where students need to pick a topic for presentation, or you can use it to set up your virtual hours that were mentioned yesterday. So you can set up the different times that you'd be available and tell students that you can see them at this time, but they must select the time. So choice allows the students to make a selection. The SCORM is, I'm not 100% familiar with it, but when I had fooled around with it, then what it does, it puts together a learning package. So from, let's say, lesson 1 to lesson 10, it puts everything together, all the text, the activities, the media that you need, all resources and activity, and it puts it together as one file, and you upload it, and when it is unpackaged, so it's uploaded as a zipped file, and when you unpackage it, what happens is that it opens up everything so students can start from lesson 1 and work through, so they have the resources and the activities as they go through. So it's like an entire course that is together in one. Yes, OurVLE.
Yeah, Michelle,
yes,
I've seen it used for self-taught
courses, yes, self-paced courses, yes. Yes, OurVLE, your hand is up.
The external tool, hope you spend some time on it, because this is what I find gets lecturers frustrated. Having to go through the iteration, make sure you get everything right, because if one thing is wrong, the tool will not be launched.
All right, so the external tool has 2 components in it. It has the Turnitin assignment and it has the Blackboard Collaborate. And yes, we're going to do the external tool. And when we come to that, I am going to apologize because I still am not on the university's system as yet. And as such, I do not have access to actually do any of this. So when we go over to OurVLE, you'll realize that I look like a man with a man's name. And Charmaine will be helping us with the Blackboard Collaborate and, well, the external tool component so that we can set that up. Okay? Any other questions? No, wonderful. And then the other thing that we can use to help us in setting up our teaching with the students are blocks. So Moodle has a set of blocks that, well, Moodle has a long list of blocks. I just picked out a couple. So there is like the calendar, the upcoming events, the messaging blocks, the news and announcements. I think it says upcoming news or notices or something like that. And the people blocks. So these are a number of blocks that have already have information written into them. So like the upcoming events, you simply put in what the activity is and it shows right there for the students. People has a list of all the participants in your course. News and announcements is where the students can go to see the different news or notices that you have posted. Messages, if you're doing private messages or you want to send messages out to the entire group there, each person sees it. And the calendar is for you to set up different dates, whether assignments graded or not, just different events that are in your course. The HTML block, however, is a blank block, which means that you can put any kind of information that you want into your HTML block. And so in a nutshell, those are the 3 things that we would be using to help us to put together one of the more fulfilling experiences for our students. So at this point, I am going to head over to the course. So because I told you that it is practical and it is hands-on and you're going to be working with me, I would like you to open your OurVLE course, any one of them. And it doesn't matter if it's a new container that you have or an existing container. We're still going to just toy around a little bit and make some changes. And let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Michelle, in the meantime, Michelle Black was asking what the workshop allows you to do if it was to set up online workshops. That's what
the workshop is if you wish for your students to give feedback on peer review. So if you want them to develop a critical eye in reviewing somebody's work, or if you want them to be able to give feedback on a particular activity that was done without you giving too much input, the workshop is ideal. In fact, I love the workshop because it forces students to look at the good, the not so good, and what could do with some improvement, and actually force them to think about their work as well. So it was not one of the things that we had on the list for today, but I can just give you a quick overview, and then we can probably work out putting a session in for that. 2 hands are up.
It's Michelle Black and Cassandra. Right.
All right, go Michelle.
I like what you said about the workshop and also the survey. I think I could use both of them when I'm teaching research methods.
Right.
Because when they have to do the critique, I could allow them to upload their document there, and then the other students could work on it, or if they have a case study, they could work on that there, and also they could create their own survey.
Yes.
And upload it there, and I could have one for each student. So I've never really used those tools before, but I can see where they could be useful.
Well, the thing is this, I don't know the extent to which students get permissions, because the survey or the feedback or the questionnaire is usually teacher created. But I do know that the Moodle platform, we call it OurVLE, the Moodle platform has what it calls permissions, where in some courses you can actually allow students to create. So if that is something that is possible, that's a great way of having them create and share and work on their work, their activities. Was that Michelle or Cassandra?
That was Michelle. So it's now Cassandra's turn.
And then OurVLE.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. So I don't have access to the tool now. I know you're saying that we should open our OurVLE tool, but I don't have access currently.
That's fine. You can watch, you can follow along.
Okay, no problem.
And since the session is also being recorded, it means that when you do have access, you can go in and try some things.
All right, thank you.
OurVLE?
Yeah, with respect to the survey tool, as teachers can also use it to check on topics. So for example, you may want to find out how do the students accept or learn a particular topic. So you can run a quick survey. You can run a quick survey because it is very flexible to find out if it was taught properly, how they view it, because sometimes when lecturers know how the students view the topic is when everybody avoid that question or feel it. Then you say, something about it wasn't taught properly. So you can use the survey along the route because it's very quick and easy to set up.
Right. Well, is it the survey or the feedback? Because as far as I remember, the survey usually has preset questions in there. The feedback is usually where you would tailor it to the questions that you want. So I think we're using the word survey and throwing me off with the tool survey. So the feedback is used for surveying purposes and questionnaire, and the survey is also used for that, but the survey has preset questions. Following me? All right, when we go in, we'll take a look at it. All right, OurVLE?
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so for those of us who actually have access to our module, please log in. And whenever you're doing anything at all in OurVLE, on your Moodle platform, you would have to turn editing on. All right, so to add your resources, to add your activities, you turn editing on. Now, I am doing this because you're gone ahead of me to external tool, OurVLE.
No, man, I'm saying and to launch your tool, you have to have editing on.
Right. That is so true. So you have to turn editing on. Now, before we turn editing on and go into the details, I just want to highlight some of the blocks that and the resources and the activities that I had just quickly shown you. Here, I have,
Michelle,
yes, Charmaine.
We're not seeing your OurVLE screen.
You're not seeing my OurVLE screen?
No.
No.
All right, let me stop sharing and change. Let's see, why weren't you seeing my OurVLE? My OurVLE is right here. All right, let's see. Are you seeing now?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so this is my page. All right, today I am Damien. Tomorrow I will be Michelle again. So the HTML block that I told you about is right here to the left, and I have put some information in. Yesterday when Charmaine was talking to us, she was saying that for information that you want the students to have immediate access to without having to click a link, you could just type it onto the page. And we had said you could use a block to do that. To the left, I have done that. So I put up a little picture. I put up my name, where I'm located, my email address, and my telephone number, because I think this is critical for my students to have. If there is other information that you need to go there, maybe not lecturer information, but something else, you can easily use a block. And we'll show you how to set up the block. This is on the right side, I have activated the latest news block. So each time I put information into that forum, it shows right here. And the newer topics are at the top and the older topics are at the bottom. Now, yesterday, Charmaine, and you'll realize that I'm making reference a lot to what happened yesterday because the two are not separate. Charmaine had pointed out to us that it is important to keep updating the students with news and information that is course related. And your latest news is one way of doing so. She also said that when you're managing your time, you set up communication protocols and so forth. I have set up a student facilitator forum, which is just simply using a forum, not for them to respond to questions that is about the content right now, but simply general. So I have set something up like this, which simply tells them that, okay, this is for general course related concerns. And I point out to them that I am not the only person who could be doing this. If there are other students in the class who can assist with the general queries, and I make sure I highlight the things that I want them to pay attention to. And I note also the time matter, I will respond within 48 hours. Now, this is not set. This was me this morning just putting some things in. If it's 24 hours for you, but please don't make it be a week long. And you point out to them that if this is something that should not be shared in a public space, they can send you an email or they can use the messaging feature. All right. So something like that takes care of a number of the best practices that we looked at yesterday. All right. Now, I also set up an upcoming events right here, and we will work through adding. And remember, if I'm going too fast, just slow me down, because I know that some of us are at different levels of comfort and expertise. So if I'm going too fast right now, let me know. But I am just talking. We haven't started actually doing the things as yet. So I have yes, OurVLE.
But our OurVLE comes with all that you're saying you set up. It comes
set up meaning I activated them, so it doesn't have to be there.
Because we get ours with them, with the new topic, old topic, upcoming event. That is when we log on to OurVLE, these are already there.
Oh, they actually put all of these in.
Right, just for you to add to them.
Ah, okay.
That is important. That part is important.
It's very important.
Adding to them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That is the key thing, to use them.
Yes.
Okay, very, very good. So the HTML block wasn't there because I added the HTML block. So that's a very good point, OurVLE. And if I wanted to add something else, I remember that I just said I have to turn editing on. So if I wanted to, I don't know if it comes because I don't know how much tweaking was done on this container before I got it. But if I wanted to put in something else, so I wanted to put in the students who are, well, all the students who are in my class, then I would select the people tab, and then I would want to move it up a little bit and put it somewhere else. I'd probably put it there. All right, so we're gonna, so there I have people. Of course, there's not supposed to be anybody in here, but if I wanted to see the students who are in the class, I would simply click there instead of having to go to participants and all of that. All right, so we can add, as OurVLE rightfully pointed out. So anything that is not the default. So maybe OurVLE, I should ask you, what are the default blocks when you get an empty container? So you have the latest news, the upcoming events. What else?
We have the go to calendar, new event. If we have all the topics.
You have older topics?
Yeah, other new topic, but we have older topic. On the left-hand
side.
Oh,
the latest news thing?
Right.
Okay, that's a part of the latest news, right?
On the left-hand side now, where your picture below you, we would have participants.
Okay.
And everything, but we don't have to put in the participant because if
it falls under the navigation block, right?
Right, but for participant, if the student is not registered for the course, the student wouldn't be one of the participants. Once the student is properly registered for the course, then he or she automatically becomes a participant. So when they are saying that they can't, they don't see them, then can't get onto OurVLE, I said check your registration, because if you're not registered, you won't be shown an OurVLE.
Okay, wonderful. And so those are the blocks that come. Right. When you get an empty container, is it set up by weeks or is it set up by topics? Does it say week 1, week 2, week 3, or does it say topic 1?
That poses a problem because for me, it comes in topics, but I put in weeks. So then I have week 1 isn't necessarily topic 1. So I have mismatches. So for example, even one no. So week 1 is introduction. Week 2 is topic 1, week 3 is topic 2, and so students get confused and say, why can't I put it along? So I said, okay, what I might have to do is say that call week 1 week 0 or something like that. So so that it can be synchronized with week 1 topic 1, week 2 topic 2. If not, the students they get confused easily.
So let me ask you something, OurVLE. When you get a template that says topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, you change the word topic 1 to week 1?
No, I add another label on that above topic 1. That will be unit. Because topic 1 is necessarily unit 1.
All right.
You can make adjustments to it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to do.
You don't have to go through all of that. See, Jean-Pierre is saying, Jean-Pierre is pointing out.
Right.
You can edit the topic and change it to week. You can change.
Well, you don't even have to edit the topic to change it to week because
he means change it where you're going to show now.
In the setting. Exactly.
Right.
So if you
you just go in and edit settings and change.
And change it to week.
To week, yeah.
Right. So you wouldn't have to go through and change it. So okay. So this is just to let you know that if it comes as a topic format and you feel more comfortable putting in using the weeks, you can change it. Or as OurVLE says, if you have the topics, you can actually edit the topic sections and change them accordingly. It wouldn't affect what you do, because that is what I did here. This would have been my topic 1. I simply change it to startup resources and activities. And then my topic 2 could be week 1, XYZ, if that is what I wanted to do. All right?
That is why we said that if you think training is expensive, try ignorance.
Yes. All right. Okay. So one of the things that I should have mentioned as we were going along is that when you look at the course that you have, you will have to determine how best or which kind of tool or activity suits what you have. So if you want the students to post their opinion on something and respond to something that somebody else has written, then of course something like the forum would be ideal, because in a forum students can see each other's work and respond accordingly. If you want them to give you a piece of work where you go through, evaluate it, assign a grade or feedback that would help them in moving on, you can use something like an assignment. So one of the things that you would have to do is ensure that when you're looking at your course, you say, okay, what do I want the students to do here? And then you look at what Moodle offers, what your OurVLE offers, and say, okay, for something like this, I could use a glossary because I want the students to understand the terms that I'm using in this class. And I want them to add a kind of dictionary or an encyclopedia. So I could use the glossary. But it means that you'd have to understand what each tool and each resource and activity, how it works. So Charmaine and I are putting together something that we'll send out that simply say, if you're thinking of XYZ, you can use this particular resource or this activity. And remember that whatever it is we give you, it is not set in stone. You can add, you can tweak, you can move around accordingly. How are we doing in the chat?
Pedagogically, for first year courses, it's always good if you could give the students a glossary.
Yes.
They are new to the course, and so it's good to give them a glossary for first year courses.
But we don't have to just give them.
I don't agree.
Go ahead, Charmaine.
I don't agree at all. The students can work. That can be one of the tasks that you said. It could be formative for them to develop a glossary of terms for the course.
Exactly.
You don't have to give it to them. I think that it's better if they are involved from the beginning in doing something like that. That's really a relatively low level of task. It's not a difficult task, so they can start there to learn the language and to be sort of discriminating in what they do. Nothing in the chat right now, Michelle.
Okay, wonderful.
I'm going to let the students know your name and that you're making life harder for them.
It's not just
you
about
you do that.
but OurVLE, it's not just about making their lives harder. We tend to say that we want students to become lifelong learners and critical thinkers and so forth. And whereas we will assist them with something like this, let them assist in developing and creating that glossary or so forth.
No, I agree there now. Just like I agree with Craig who said that give them some terms and let them find the definitions. I agree. It could be a good icebreaker for the course.
There you go.
And they could add to those. They could add to what you give them. And when you look at what they come up with as definitions and so on, you will have the opportunity to address any, areas of that you need to address, any weaknesses, any misunderstandings in terms of the way they have put in the definition. So I think that is a good way.
No, I agree. I'm making notes so I can add it.
All right. So this is a feedback. Oh no. So this is a feedback, and I put survey so that the students know exactly that this is a particular surveying of information. So this is a feedback, and this is what the icon looks like. All right, so we're going to start out with the feedback and the survey to look at the distinction between the two. All right, I'm a little bit rusty with the survey, so forgive me. So let us start with the survey, and it is an activity. So I would go over to the activity section and I would click on survey.
Colleagues, I hope you are moving along and doing it.
And if I'm going too fast, remember, slow me down. I want to give the survey a particular name. So what we're going to call this one?
OurVLE training.
All right, so the name for a survey is off, but fine. Training, and I'll put survey. Okay, now this is what I was talking about. With the survey type, they are actually predetermined. So I would have to select one of these that is already there. So I'm just going to shut my eye and select one thing here. All right, it requires a description, so I'll just copy and paste that there. and then save and display. Now let us see what this looks like. So this is what the one that I selected looks like. So it has its set of questions already set up. So it has attitudes towards thinking and learning. And of course, the students would go in and they would respond accordingly. So all of the questions for this, all questions are already set up. So this is the difference between the survey and the feedback. The survey already has questions that are set up. You simply select it. All right. So
and
that
you
is
that all of these use a Likert scale.
right.
So,
This one uses
so
a Likert.
is not really amenable to everything that we'll do.
That you would want to do.
Yeah.
And let me see if we can actually edit it. It doesn't seem that way. Okay, so we would just have to use it as it is.
Yeah.
No, that is the survey. The feedback which we're going to use as a survey looks like this. So I would go in, I would click on activity, I would go to feedback. And we can still call it a survey in the name, but we need to realize in our head that there is something on OurVLE called survey, which has a preset of questions. And then there is the feedback, which is basically blank, and we create it from scratch. So what we're going to call this one?
Trainee response.
Still a lame title, but we'll go with it. Trainee response survey. When you name your
feedback, our feedback, trainee response feedback.
Feedback.
Granted response and feedback sound very.
All right, let us call it trainee feedback, right?
Yeah, right.
When you're setting up your feedback, let's call it a survey, since we know that we won't be using the plugin called survey, right? When you're setting up this activity to get information from your students, remember that you can also use it for diagnostic purposes. So if you want to get a feel of where they are, you can set up a simple feedback. I tend to use it to do an online profile. So I always set up one in my courses where I ask the students certain questions, and it's also research that you're collecting. So I ask them certain questions, things like, this course carries an online component, or this course is fully online. What is your internet cable connection like? And I give them the options. I ask them things like, what do you think would make this class more useful? And based on the responses, that can also help you, especially if you set it up in the early days of your class. All right. Now, availability. Are we all together? Am I not? I'm not going too fast, am I?
No, I was laughing because you could set up yourself if when you ask them what you could do to make the class better, they may say change the lecturer. But
Oh, okay. So what I tend to do in a case like that, I put examples. So I say, mention things like the use of games, comics, and so forth. So yes, that's a very good point though. Don't just leave it open like that, because they might just say something like change the lecturer. Availability, if you are going to put a timer on it, you can decide that the student, it would be open to the students between X time and X time. Especially in orientation week, if you want them to complete it by the end of orientation week, you can put a timer on it. I usually don't put a timer on mine because students tend to come in at different points. What I tend to do is put in my news and announcement reminders that if you haven't done the questionnaire as yet, you ought to do so as quickly as possible, because the information will help me to help you. So I'm going to leave it, but remember that you can easily change it. And to change it, you make sure you select enable. And when you select enable, it will give you the chance to change the dates. So I'm changing this to the 16th, which means that the students will not have access to it until the 16th. If I leave it for, say, today's the 8th,
right,
and 13:30 would be 1:30, which means that when I'm finished, it would be open for the students. And if I select allow answers to, and I put, say, the 18th, and I put until 11:30, it means that it will close at such time. You would also need to tell the students, ensure that you complete it by X time, because then it will be closed and will be unavailable if you select these things. Question and answer submission settings. This is where you decide whether or not you want the students' names to be there. I usually leave it as anonymous, because even though other students don't see it, you as a teacher tend to know who does what. All right. And then you can decide if you want them to do it more than once. I usually leave it for one. So I say, no, I don't want multiple submissions, because sometimes students go in and they discuss with their friends, and then they go back in and change it, and it doesn't really reflect their thing. It reflects a discussion where other person's input are there. So I usually just leave it to once, to no, so they only do it once. Enable notification of submission, please select no. If you select yes, your emails will be flooded with every time a student goes in and completes the survey. And auto number questions, this simply means that for each section you have, the system sets up numbers automatically. I tend to say yes, because it gives it a little more organized and cleaner look in terms of the order. All right, are we good? Are we good?
No queries, no queries.
No queries, wonderful. After submission is when the students have completed the survey or your questionnaire, what happens? So if you want to see an analysis page, I usually say yes. The analysis helps you to take a quick look in visual terms of how many persons responded to this question and that sort of thing. So it gives you a visual of how many persons have completed this and how they have responded. A completion message, you can leave it blank, or you can say thank you for completing this survey, or something that says thank you. A simple thank you could work. Link to the next activity, we leave that alone unless you are doing a kind of course where when they're finished with this, it will automatically take them to the other activity. So I usually leave that empty.
Right. So for example, in some of the research courses, so they are expected to carry out the survey and then use that survey data now for the next unit, which would be
then you can put your link to the
analysis.
There you go. Beautiful. And common module settings has to do with whether or not it shows whether or not you have groups. Now, for large groups, you may want to set it up so that there are separate groups. No groups mean that everybody sees everything right there on the page. Separate groups mean that each group is together, they get the activity, but they don't see the other groups. And visible groups mean that you are separate, you can cross over, but you can see the other group. So in a class like, I'm just going to make up a course here because I'm not familiar with the courses. So let us say governance in the Caribbean. Governance in the Caribbean may have thousands of students, say 2,000-3,000 students, but they have different groups. So you may have group 1, which is at a particular time, and then group 2, which is at a different time. But I think you call them occurrences or tutorials. I don't know what you call them. Tutorials. So you have different tutorials. Now, if you select separate groups, when the students go on, and sometimes the lecturers, depending on the settings, they don't see anybody else. So they only see their group under the students in their group, nobody else. For visible groups, they can see other groups, but they cannot enter that group. And for no groups at all, everybody's in the same big space, like one big lecture. All right? So depending on how your course is set up, you would leave that alone, or you would select whether it's a separate group or not.
Just a word here. Where you have separate groups, colleagues, and you make the groups visible, that can be useful. It can be useful, but you have to be sure that this is what you want to do. It can be useful so that if there are common things that are dealt with across the groups, they would be able to see that. but they would not be able to join another group. So if Michelle posts something, am I right? Not right, Michelle? If you
You're
post
very
something,
right.
right? Everybody in all the groups can see it, but they can't leave OurVLE's group and go into Sandra's group because they feel that Sandra is a better tutor, right?
And and what the students tend to see too, it says not available unless you belong to OurVLE's group, or not available unless you belong to Michelle's group.
Right, but
No,
they can benefit from what Michelle has posted to everybody.
Exactly. And then grouping, no. The difference between groups and grouping is simple. Why they called it this, I don't know. The grouping is the bigger class and the groups are the subclasses. So let us say I teach Spanish, okay? I teach Spanish and I have a class called Spanish 1. That is my grouping. Within my Spanish 1 class, I have set up 4 main groups that the students will work in each time. So I call one Conquistador and I call one Avencedor, and I have different groups. So the grouping is the bigger class and the groups are the smaller class. Now in a course called Governance in the Caribbean may be the grouping, and each tutorial that you have would be considered your groups. It's a little bit confusing because we're so used to groups as the bigger thing, but that is how it works. So I can have a class, I can teach Spanish, and I have 4 different Spanish groups. So my grouping would be Michelle's group classes, Michelle's Spanish classes. And then my groups would be tutorial 1, tutorial 2, tutorial 3, and tutorial 4. Of course, we wouldn't name that like that. We'd probably have more recognizable information so that we know exactly which group is tutorial 1 and so forth. I think somebody's hand went up.
Julian has a question.
Go ahead, Julian.
Michelle, about editing and designing survey questions. If you could say something about that.
Is your mic working, Julian? Ask the question. Let me get a better idea. Good afternoon.
So the questions that I'm seeing here are pre-designed questions.
The survey.
Right.
Design my own questions. How do I go about doing that?
So if you want to design your own question, I don't know if you came in late. If you want to design your own question, we use the feedback, which is what we're setting up. So we're creating our own question here for the students to answer. So we're using the feedback.
Okay.
But we haven't reached where we add the questions as yet. We're just going through the setting up part.
Okay, fine.
All right, wonderful.
Sandra got knocked off because lightning took her electricity.
It's been going on here as well, so I'm hoping that it doesn't.
Thunder. I just hope we'll be all right.
Yeah. Restrict access. Restrict access is usually useful if you have your groups and groupings set up. What restrict access does is that it allows you to put a restriction, and restriction comes in different forms and shapes. I'll show you in a few, on certain resources or activities. So let me show you. You can have a restriction that is activity completion based, which means that unless your students complete your profile activity, they cannot move on to the next activity that you have. So that's an activity completion restriction. So you can set it so that in order for them to do this particular task or to read this particular piece of resource that you have, they must do something before. All right. I feel OurVLE smiling. You can put a date restriction on, which means that this, and which is what we were setting up the top. You cannot access this piece of information until this particular date, or until or from. So you can see it on July 6th until July 8th, or you can just say this will be available from July 8th, or you can say this will close on July 8th. So that's putting a date restriction. A grade restriction is you can say that the student must pass the activity before or a particular activity that you had set up before in order to move on. User profile tend to be, you set a restriction based on what is in the student's profile. So usually if a student has an ID number and you have a makeover test to do and you want only that student to do it, you can make the restriction be only on that ID number. So that's from the user profile.
And those ID numbers can maybe 3 or 4 students you give them a makeover, so you put in those numbers.
So you put in all of those. And restriction set is where you can decide what are the different things you want to add. So for each of these, it's just one. But a restriction set, I can put a restriction set that says, you have to complete this activity, you have to do it by this date, and you have to get this grade. So the restriction set allows me to put in each of those. All right, so let's click and see how that works. So if I say activity completion, you know what, let us not do that, because it means that they're gonna have to do something in order to make this available, and I want us to see. But then you'll see that the different things drop down and you can select what activity they must do in order to continue. All right. The activity completion has to be turned on in your course setting for you to select it here. All right. So it will not show up unless it is turned on in your course settings. Okay. So I'm going to just close it because we're not going to use it. And this, which says that students can, so remember when I said you can set the restriction, I had this turned on. So it means that I would have the activities complete when the conditions are met, meaning that the students have already done the task, whether it is viewing it, getting a pass mark, whatever the task is. All right. And then when I click on save on display, it carries me here where I get an overview of what is happening. So it tells me that the survey is called trainee feedback, and that when the message is completed, it will say, thank you for completing this survey. Over here, the second column is where we would click to edit questions. So this is where we would now put the questions that we have come up with into our survey. So please click on edit questions. All right. Now you will get a select box, which when you click it, it gives you a drop down of different things that you can put into your survey. All right. Now the add a page break is if you want to have different sections in your survey. We're not really interested in this unless it's a very long survey and we're told that we ought not to make surveys and questionnaires too long. The capture is something, you know how sometimes you go to some web page and they say, show that you're not a robot. Guys, remember, I'm not seeing you, so you need to make a sound. So when you go and you see something that says, show that you're not a robot, this is where this is the capture. In order for you to activate it, we don't need it in your course because you know that your students are in there and the only way they can get in is if they have registered. So you don't need it. But if you wanted to test it out, you'd have to get something from Google that's called, I think it's called Capture Go, for them to initiate the different codes that you would put in. Okay, now this is where we're interested in anything from information down. Information is simply giving them content about whatever section. And the label separates the different sections. We don't need a label as yet. Maybe when we're finished, we would. Longer text is if you want them to write something more that's like a little paragraph or explain something. Multiple choice, they select one response. Multiple choice rated, they give, it has a numerical value. It's a rating. So something like on a scale of 5 to 10, which one of the following would you put in? And numeric answer is putting 1, 2, 3, 4, and short text is just that short answer. All right, so let us start building our, so we're gonna start out with a multiple choice question, okay? When we do that, we get a window that allows us to put more information in. Required is whether or not you want the students to answer it. Okay, so if the question is a critical question and you want all of them to respond, select required. I tend to put required for almost all my questionnaire questions because I think not all of them are important. This is where I'd write the question. So I'd say something like, are you male or female? Okay, and then the label is just for you. So the students don't see the label, but if you have to go back in and make edits, the labels help you. You decide whether or not the responses will come down, vertical or horizontal, okay? And then the type of multiple choice is whether or not it's a single answer or a multiple answer or a multiple choice single answer with a drop down that they select. Okay, so we're going to do one of each. So let's start with the single answer. So please select multiple choice single answer. Do not analyze empty submits. I usually leave it as
Yes.
yes, do not analyze. I always get confused here. So yes, do not analyze. Hide the not selected option. I usually say yes because I don't want students to necessarily go in and tick not selected, any, that sort of thing. And the multiple choice answers are what I would put here, and you put each one in a line and the information is right there. So I'd put male, F come before M, don't it? So I'd put
Yes.
female and then male. Okay, dependence on simply means that if you have a branching, so if it says something like, are you interested in this session? And if it says no, it would take them to somewhere else. And if it's yes, it would take them to somewhere else. But we don't necessarily want that. So we simply click save question. All right. And it gives us a preview. All right. So sex is for me, not for the students. So they don't see this when they view that. All right. So let's add a few more questions. We said that we were going to go for multiple choice, more than one answer. Give me a question that could have more than one answer.
Which days are best for you for a tutorial?
Good.
That's a good one. And then you can put in brackets, select all that applies.
Yeah, so they know they can select more than one.
Right, and then I would have tutorial days. So this would help me if I need to go back in. And this is where I would select multiple choice, multiple answers. All right. And of course, I wish I could, I had asked this question, that I wish I could just select it once and it stays. So we have Monday, Tuesday, just going shorten, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we still have classes on Saturdays?
Yeah, we have a weekend school.
All right, there we go. So Sunday should be there too?
Yes, because MSBM have classes on Sunday.
Okay, fine. And then I go save question. All right, so it looks like this so that the students can actually select more than one, where for this one, they can only select one or the other. All right, so this is called a checkbox. This is called a radial button. All right, let's just add 2 more questions and then we're out of the questionnaire. What should we add next? A short answer. We want to ask them a particular question. What should we ask them? Come on, guys.
Use 15 words to describe online teaching.
Go again?
Use 15 words to describe online teaching. So you can use 10.
All right, go. Paula, you have a question.
Paula's hand is up.
It's a question. We moved away from the multiple choice options, but I was curious about the very last one.
Oh, yes, you are so correct. I did say we were going to. So I'm going to just cancel and we go to the third type. So we select multiple choice, required. This is the multiple choice, which is a single answer, but it has a drop down. All right, so give me a question which has just one correct response. That would have them selecting just one response.
Do you like public speaking?
Seriously? All right. Do you like public?
A public speaking course.
So do you like public speaking? Yes or no?
Okay, so then I go preference. I thought you'd have given me something that had more than just two. All right, so I'll go something like yes,
Or
no,
Maybe.
Depends.
maybe.
Depends.
Yeah, it depends is better. It depends, yeah. All right, and then I click save question. So what that one looks like is this. So they have the drop down where they select the response. Okay, so all those are multiple choice, but one is single answer, one is multiple, and one is single answer with the drop down. And guys, even though we're going through this with you on your own, I'm gonna actually stop it here, but on your own, you can just go through and explore. It's very, very rewarding when you test something and you can't break the internet, you hear? So you just go through and try it on your own. So I'm returning to the section, and when I go into the course, no, as I explained to you earlier, today I am Damien, and as such, I have very limited access to what I can or cannot do. In teacher mode, you can actually switch to the role of student. So you see exactly what the student sees and how the student sees it. Based on Damien's role, I don't have that kind of access. So I just turn the editing off so I can see. So you realize that based on the time that I'd set it up, it comes up in the upcoming events. So it's there that it will start this day and it will end this day because I'd put those in. And if I scroll down and click on it, as if I were to do it, well, as I said to you before, I am still seeing this as the person who set it up. But the students would go in and they would click on the different questions, and then when they're finished, I can go in and click on show responses, where it would list how many persons responded to question 1, how many persons responded to question 2, and so forth. And the beautiful thing about it is that it allows you to have an idea right away that, okay, something is you can use this for like midpoint evaluations as well. So you can have flags going off saying, okay, maybe I need to pay more attention to this area, or maybe I need to repeat this particular component, or maybe I need to switch up this group for whatever reason. All right, and that is your feedback. So I hope you see the difference now between the feedback and the survey. Yes?
Julian, does that help?
Julian?
Julian, are you still here? Yes.
Yes, I am.
Julian. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Okay, now it is already 2 o'clock and we have quite a number of sections to go. So the next thing that we're going to look at very quickly would be the forum. Now, I want us to look at the forum because there are 2 ways that you can use the forum. A lot of us tend to use the forum just for general discussion purposes. But did you know that if you were to select the question and answer forum, you could set it up so that when a student goes in, he or she submits his or her work before getting a chance to access other students' work? Did you know that? Well, if you didn't, today is your lucky day. So we're going to show you how you can actually set up a forum, how you can assign a grade to it so that if you want to grade it, give students some kind of feedback, you can do so. All right. How is the chat room looking, Charmaine?
They seem to be busy working, but Jean-Pierre said that he used that last semester. He did it last semester. How did it go, Jean-Pierre?
He used what? The question and answer?
Right.
Wonderful.
The setting it up in the way you just described.
Wonderful.
You want to tell us how it worked for you, Jean-Pierre?
please.
That we hear voices. Things are
Yes.
very quiet here.
Sure. So what I used it for, I had prompt questions for the tutorials that I asked the students to respond to, but they had to give their response. So for example, I would ask them to give their opinion on a topic like use of force in the Middle East, and each of them would have to respond to the prompt question, and after responding, they would then see the responses of the other students displayed. So that means that their responses would not have been influenced by the responses of the other students.
Wonderful.
And that way it didn't matter if they all said the same thing, because what I was looking for was each individual's
exactly. Exactly. So is John here?
Yes, it's Jean-Pierre.
I am going to ask you to walk us through setting that up. So you are going to talk to us and I will simply do what you're doing.
Wait, just a second, let me pull that back up.
Okay. So guys, we're walking through setting up our forum, not just the normal forum, but the question and answer forum, and Jean-Pierre is taking the lead on this one. Jean-Pierre?
Jean-Pierre, you didn't run away?
Is he still with us?
Let me see. I'm not seeing him.
Okay.
Is anybody seeing Jean-Pierre? I wonder if he dropped out. Could have dropped out.
Quite possible. So let us go until he comes back.
Right.
All right. So remember that I had turned editing off earlier, so I wouldn't be able to see anything. So I'm just turning my editing back on, and it's just something to always remember. All right. And I'm just finding the area where I want to put my forum. So I'm going to put it here in best practices in remote teaching. And I would go to add an activity. Now I'd set up labels. So the labels separate the resources from the activities. So that makes it easier for me to also put my forum. So I click on the forum and I give my forum a name, okay? So I'd call it review of what now, guys? Review of online standards, no? Okay, and then in the description, I would indicate some information. So I would say you have, let me stroke their egos, based on your expertise and knowledge on online standards, you have been selected to assist in reviewing the current standards for Jamaica. All right, select review details to read and make your evaluation. All right, so this tells them, I'm just going to put this in bold, just doing a little bit of editing, formatting. So I'm putting that in bold and I'm changing so this highlights for them that it is the review details below that they're supposed to click on in order to proceed. All right, so the forum type, standard is where everybody sees everybody's thing at the same time and response. I am looking for question and answer. All right, so I click the drop down and I click on question and answer forum. Attachment and word counts, I don't want any here, so I will put uploads are not allowed. And this, I don't want any attachments. And I don't necessarily want to display the word count. If you have something where you want them to keep a limit, a limit on the number of words they write, you can do that. So when they post, it gives them a total of how many words they've written, and that can control the number of words. Subscription and tracking, I usually leave it at optional. If you force it every time a student writes something, it comes to your message or your email or something like that. You can disable it if you will, but optional means that they get the choice to decide whether or not they want to receive messages each time. So I usually leave it at optional. Read tracking, I usually leave that on so that when students post, it tells me that it shows me the ones that I haven't read as yet. It's usually very useful because it will tell you that you have 7 unread posts and you can just go in and go through the ones you haven't read as yet. Post threshold.
Is back.
Oh, John Pierre, we had started when you went away. So we had something here. So you don't have to work with our content. We just want you to help us go through the steps. So we have realized that we need to select question and answer forum, and we did that. What else should we do?
Wait, sorry, so I'm falling on my phone. I'm trying to zoom on the screen to see that because I have no internet in my office at the moment.
All right.
The most important is to select the Q&A forum. I mean, the other settings are really
peripheral.
Yeah, they don't have that much weighting on it. So that's just other things that you're selecting in terms of the time, whether or not you're grading the comments of the students, because you can actually add that as well so that you can grade.
So we should put a grade?
You can do that, yes, because that will pop up in the grade feature that's on the Moodle platform as well.
All right, so should we go sum of ratings, count of ratings? Which one should we go to?
All right, so I honestly cannot help you with that part because I did not use the grade, so.
Okay, so we don't have to use the grade.
I didn't test to see what those represent.
Or one of the good things is that there's a little question mark beside some of them that help you. So it tells you what these are, just in case you need a little help. So wherever you see the question mark, you can just click on it and it gives you a little summary, neat little summary of how to work with that. But we're gonna do no ratings, all right? And then do I save and return to course, or do I save and display, Jean-Pierre?
Save and return to course. Save and display just takes you to a little section that shows up what the welcome page or the forum will be.
All right, so I click save and return to course, and there it is, review of online standards. And what do I do now?
So that's where you would click, and it would take you to whatever it is that you had placed as. So
but it says add a new question.
Yes, so then you have to make the initial post in the forum. So let's say that you wanted to ask a question on one of the themes you're looking at in the tutorials. You would ask the question there. When the students come in, they would see the initial post that you make, and then they would click on reply to that question.
I see. So this is very critical, guys. When you're setting up a question and answer forum, you have a precursor section. So this is like a preview into what is going to happen. And then you have to write the details of what it is you want them to respond to. So I would put online review. And because I said that they're reviewing it for Jamaica, I'll just put Jamaica there. And then I will put the details here, which would be using the standards, and then you can probably refer to where the standards are. Review Jamaica's documents Jamaica's documents, pay attention to the tools, resources, and accessibility components. So they know that they're focusing on 3 different things. Coming OurVLE. All right.
Michelle, Christine is asking you to do the ratings for that.
All right, we'll go back and do the ratings. Okay. Yes, OurVLE.
Just checking that you have a limited time within which you can edit the question that you set, the question and answer that you set.
Not for the teacher, actually. So by default, it will tell you that you have 30 minutes because I think OurVLE, the MITS set it at 30. But as a teacher, you can go back in and edit whatever it is was there before. The students, however, don't have that kind of luxury.
Yes. But I just want to ask Charmaine, over in the open campus, even the lecturer had a limited time. So you couldn't choose 2 days later to go in and edit. Has that changed, Charmaine?
Well, I don't know. I doubt that it would have changed.
Because,
also, even for the lecturers couldn't go in and...
Right. So you have a longer time than a student, but you don't have an inordinately long time.
Not for the current one that I am using, because what I realized that I went in this morning into the Moodle that I was using. I think it has to do with the administrator settings. So I think what they did was for us, the teachers, because this is not necessarily a school setting. They're using it for training, but not for education purposes. So I think maybe what they did was they changed our settings so that we could go in and edit anytime. So that was why I didn't know that there was a limit on the teachers at all. I just assumed. All right.
Two hands are up now outside of OurVLE's. Paula Ann's hand is up. Paula Ann, Jean-Pierre, and then Michelle.
Okay, we're going in that order. Paula, Jean-Pierre, Michelle.
Okay, my question is, why select question and answer forum if this isn't really a question? This is like a task. It is a task. You can put it as a question, but this type of forum is a type where they have to post their question or their task before they can see the other one. So even though it's called a question and answer, the same way that they call the feedback, and the survey, it's the naming, but what I think is more important. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm still not clear.
Okay. So you have what's called a standard forum where everybody can post, whether it's a question or a statement, and everybody can reply to it. This particular type, which they call a question and answer, means that you have to post something first, whether it's a question that you're posting or you're making a comment, but you have to post it first, almost as if you're posing a question, before you get an opportunity to view answers or responses. So it's just the name of it. It's called a question and answer, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be a question or an answer.
It's just, I guess, forcing students to have to participate, give their opinion, or do something. Is that the purpose of this? It
forces them to participate in a particular way. So one of the things that I realize with my students, if I say to them, look at the following 3 images and give your views on the style or the color scheme that is used. Most of my students go in and they just look at what other students write and they write it back. The question and answer forces me to initiate a response before I have access to see what anybody else has. So let us look at how it works. I hope I can view this as a student. Send me emails of the post. Please select I do not want emails, because again, every time a student posts, it will go to your email. All right. So unless you are comfortable with that, deselect it, because when you go in, you will see who has posted and who hasn't. So Paula, just before I come to you, Jean-Pierre and Michelle, this is what tends to happen. So when I go in, let me see if I can view a student.
No, I cannot. But this is what happens. When I go in, I have to, oh no, I can't. I am so sorry. I cannot show you how it works because he's
I think I understand the principle. When I did my forum, I did have a few students who kind of just repeated what their group members said.
Right.
So
But what the student would actually see here is that this is a question and answer. It will say this is a question and answer forum. You cannot see the responses of others until you have posted. So they actually get a prompt. So it forces them to now sit down and do the work in order to have access to anything else.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Jean-Pierre, you're next.
Sorry.
Yeah, I suppose that that's what I was going to respond to in addition to the editing option. That if you, the fact is that you are the initiator of the forum, so you can always go back and edit, but also you can reply to the forum post. So if there was something that you missed from your initial instructions, you can always go back in and make an addendum post if it doesn't give you the option to
edit. Okay, thank you.
And yeah, with the Q&A, I mean, it just happens to be the designation for the forum, but it only means that each participant has to make a contribution. When each participant goes in, all they will see before they make a contribution is the question or statement.
This question.
And then once they have clicked submit for theirs, everything else is populated.
And you need to also bear in mind, guys, that the question and answer does not prevent them from cheating if they want to cheat. Because what they will do, students have become very creative. They will go in and post something, still look at what is there, and then copy. So it's a good way. I don't know how the settings are here because in some courses, you can set the settings in such a way that students cannot delete the responses once they have posted. So in a question and answer forum, that would be ideal. So you get a chance to see exactly what it is they have posted as their first post, even if they do subsequent posts. Michelle, your hand was up.
Paula, and you're through? Or is that an old or a new hand?
I'm sorry, let me lower the hand, apologies.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, when I use the forums, and the forums I think are really used to facilitate class activities, to facilitate interaction. So it can be used for a question, you can pose a statement. I typically use them, I upload a case study with questions or a video. I upload a video with questions, or it can be a picture.
Right.
And the students have to answer the question and then they have to respond to two students' comments. And
yes.
there are guidelines given for the forum before they start. And then there's typically a rubric that tells them how I'm going to be analyzing the forum. And then they get this before they actually start. Like when we start the class, we'll discuss this. And so we're going through, as they're going through, I would remind them about it, what I'm looking for, so that they know, so that they're just not writing any old thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned the rubric because as a best practice, and Charmaine mentioned it yesterday, one of the things that we have to do is ensure that we give students the marking schemes, we give them the rubric so that they know how exactly they're going to be evaluated in a particular activity. All right, I'm going back to the ratings. Now, you mentioned that the rating would, the rubric would have a grade. It tells you who can actually assign a grade. So you notice that there's nothing here about the students. Now, I don't know if it's allowed. You could probably have a discussion to talk to MITS to say, in this particular activity, I want the students to assign each other a grade based on what is written, and then they can make the adjustments to the permission. But right now, it's the facilitator who does the rating or the grading. And I want to give them a grade, and I want to give them a grade. Let's say they're responding to 2 questions. I give them count of rating because they would have made 2 different posts. They would have responded and then they would have replied to somebody else. So this means that for each post that they made, the grades are counted. Okay, maximum simply means that the highest grading that is there, doesn't matter how many times they post. Minimum means the least possible. So sum is what? Count is 1, 2, 3, 4, and sum is when you add up everything. All right, and average, of course, if they have 4 or 5, and you give each person each post a different grade, what the system does is that it adds it and then it averages it based on the number of posts. So let me do sum of ratings for this one. Okay, I am not using the scale, I'm using point, which means that there is a grade, and then it allows me to put in what the maximum grade would be. So let me say 25 for this analysis. Okay, now I can decide that there is going to be a point when no grading will take place anymore. So you would say to the students, if you post after September 15, there will be no grade assigned. So they will know that they have to post it, so that, because what happens is that if you select this and you say until the 12th, what will happen on the 12th is that that little section that allows you to grade will be grayed out. Oh Lord, that's a pun. So that little section that allows you to input a grade, a numeric value, will no longer be accessible. It would be grayed out. All right, so let us look at what this looks like. I keep forgetting that I do not have access that the students would have. So a student has posted, and what I would do, I wonder if I can reply. Let me reply and see if it will allow me to. I don't know if it will allow me. This is me just testing something based on the access that I have. So please don't be alarmed. No, it doesn't. So where it says sum of ratings here, if I were seeing the students' work, what it would allow me to do is click a drop down, which would have points down to 25, and I would select the grade based on the rubric that I'm using and what the student has written. And then of course, I can also make a comment to say to the student, great work, you have addressed so and so, or you probably needed to look at this here or that. So in addition to using the normal forum, this is using the question and answer forum, which simply means that the students have to initiate a response before they have access to anything else that is already posted. All right, guys? Yes?
You okay?
All right, wonderful.
Colleagues with that?
Yes.
Christine says she's loving this.
Okay, I am happy.
Just one other thing, Michelle.
Go ahead.
The forum can be used for very good pedagogic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I see even the years after I used to save them, and yes, I go back to look at how students responded to issues on the particular topic at a particular point in time. So sometimes you have a long thread of all 20 of them and student responses. And so they even serve a set of students before the exam, go look at the responses of your fellow students, look at my responses to them. And so the forum really serve a good pedagogic process.
It does. And that's one of the things that Charmaine was pointing out yesterday. Encourage the students to look at outstanding responses and comments that are made, so that also helps to guide without you telling them, okay, this is what you need to prepare for and this is what you bear in mind. You tell them to go look and share what is there. Paula, your hand is up.
I'm just curious, the gentleman that spoke before you, what kinds of questions did you ask? Were they content-based? Were they more pushing for thinking ideas? What kinds of questions would serve that purpose?
Both, because it's suited to ask questions that pulls out the student. So avoid questions that is just going to be answered yes, no. You ask questions said, from the viewpoint of many Jamaicans, do you think that we should that rather than do you think yes or no? So you ask questions that will elicit a response that they have to argue out, not a yes or no, because then it almost don't serve the purpose.
So
and that even if it's a yes,
argument as opposed to, well, argument and thinking.
Right, and thinking, and critical thinking. So you use a forum and you set up questions that you know will engender a long discussion.
And the forum is also used a lot among some persons for debating purposes.
Yes.
So you set up a question, that you want to call your moot, and then you have some people going against it and they have to justify. And there is where the meat of the matter comes in, where you really see the cogs turning and the thinking coming out when you ask for justification. Explain your reasons.
Yeah, and for some of us lecturers in the UWI system, so you have students from St. Lucia, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, Nevis, wherever it is. You get, well, I always tell students that I learn from them each time that I teach them, because I don't have all their experiences, so I learn from all of their experiences. And so you see the different perception and things. Similar things like, what do you think about the Caribbean Court of Justice? The people from St. Lucia give you one answer, from St. Kitts another, Guyana, who have already accepted it, and so on. So what you keep seeing is a wide cross-section in the forum that even help you, the lecturer, to better understand the Caribbean and the issues that you're teaching.
What do you teach, OurVLE?
Whole heap of things. I teach Caribbean culture. I teach introduction to sociology. I also teach Caribbean civilization and found 1301 law, economy, governance, and society, to name a few.
Okay. I see that 2 hands are up. I can't see your name, so.
And Christine has a question for OurVLE, directed to OurVLE.
Okay, OurVLE.
In the chat, OurVLE.
Oh, in the chat. Sorry, let me go into the chat.
Oh, so that's not
she
for us.
wants to know if it means that you would comment on the responses in a timely manner. Well, you're supposed to do that.
Yes.
In the event that a response is not relevant and maybe off track. I could step in a little bit before OurVLE there.
Okay, go ahead.
Christine, if OurVLE, and if it's okay with the two of you.
Yes.
In terms of in the event that a response is not relevant and maybe off track, a student could point that out too. So as the lecturer, you don't have to immediately come in and correct something. You could, in the discussion forum, you could leave it for a little bit and see, how others respond to it. Or you can give a prompt and ask, okay, colleague, what do you think of this? What do you think of Christine's response? Please comment on Christine's response before you come in. And, they talk about weighing in. Remember that there's sometimes not any one answer to something. So you want to wait a little bit and see how students respond. So OurVLE can reply now.
Just before OurVLE replies, though, I just wanted to remind us on something that you said yesterday, Charmaine, on managing our time. So you don't want to be going in and responding to each comment. You probably want to wait until the end, and then you have a grand response that looks at the high points and the areas that needed some improvements, and then probably leave them with some more questions to pick their thoughts. So you don't want to necessarily be going in and responding every 2 days or every 2 posts or every post. Then you'd spend the entire time doing just that. Go ahead, OurVLE.
When you have like the open campus had a very good system that is where most of us got our training from initially. So for example, there is, I forget the name of the person, Charmaine, who would keep looking in the forum to see how long the tutors or the course coordinators are taking to answer. And so they would contact you by mail or by phone to say, OurVLE, notice you haven't been on in 2 days, what's happening? And so on. I noticed that your tutor has not been on in a week, what's happening? And so on. We tend to do have that in the OurVLE, which is sad. The thinking here is that lecturers are responsible enough and will manage their courses. The issue though is that if you don't know that is something that you have to do, then it don't become part of your management skill.
But I think to OurVLE, I'm sorry to interject, but I think too, we have to look at the bigger picture. The people who are responsible for these things, it's a very small group, 1 or 2 people who are currently being overwhelmed with so many other things. I think an expansion with very specific job roles would assist in a case like this, where you prompt people to say you haven't been in for a while. But when you're just 1 or 2 persons doing everything, it becomes difficult or impossible. But that is something that is...
just 1 second, Charmaine. Don't make any excuse for the university, Michelle. Don't make any excuse for the university. Students deserve the best, and issues like these should be tackled from the faculty or department level, where the department would employ someone to oversee that. We keep asking the lecturers to do everything, and so they become law unto themselves because there's no oversight.
There's no oversight. That part is true. I stand corrected, but what I was saying was actually, if there were to be such a rule, it would have to be for a particular person to carry that out in order to do that kind of oversight. But you do raise a good point when you say that it is the faculty's responsibility to ensure that these things work smoothly.
Well, for now, as the lecturers, you will need to do your jobs, which is to teach. And part of that teaching is responding to students. And in the asynchronous environment of OurVLE, on the discussion forums and so on, you will need to, arrive at some sort of contract with students to say by when you will respond, whether it's within 48 hours or whatever it is, and be responsible enough to do that. Because at this point, there is nothing else, nobody between you and the students to do that. True. I guess as time goes on and, the campus uses more online strategies and so on, things like those may well change. That is how I would respond to that.
I'm sorry, doesn't it also depend on how you set up your class? Because I remember from teaching in the States that a lot of us set up our classes on a weekly basis. So all the activities, all the forums, students have like 1 week to do the quizzes. Like we'll have our lecture, then you have 1 week to do the forum, 1 week to do the quizzes, 1 week to read. So then at the end of that time, then you should have responded to the students. You respond periodically, but you give them enough time, because you do have some students with some issues as well. So you don't want to be, giving the answers away too soon. And you also want, all of them to participate. So you give them at least a week. And that is consistent, from week to week, so students know what to expect each time.
That is also true, Michelle. That's also true. But it is your responsibility as lecturers to provide a schedule of, when things are due and so on, which is why the blocks that Michelle mentioned would be helpful, so that students know when things are due and so on. As you say, you check in periodically to see how things are going. If you're seeing that nothing is happening, then it is for you to prompt and so on. So, it is something that you have to build in the time to do. It's not like stepping into your physical classroom and you leave after 2 hours and that's it. That's not what this is.
That is true. And even in your physical face-to-face class, it is your responsibility. And the same way we hold students responsible and we say to them, these are our expectations of you, we also have expectations that we're supposed to carry out. And one of that is ensuring that we check in. It is our course. We're supposed to be there. There's something called being present in your course and establishing teacher presence, and avoiding this whole ghost lecturer thing. So we are actually supposed to be in and be responding and checking in and so forth. The same way we expect students to log in and do the work, they're expecting us to respond to what they have done. And
we owe it to each other.
Yes, I usually set up my classes like every Sunday. So every Sunday, the students know that everything is due by a particular time. But I would check the forums and respond to certain questions. But it's consistent because the students need the consistency as well. You don't want this week, you tell them everything is due on Friday, the next week it's another day, it's another day, it's another day. Then that leads to frustration as well. So it has to be consistent.
It's frustration, and it means that it makes it more difficult for them to plan also.
Exactly.
And they do need to plan as well. Sandra's hand is up.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Yes.
We're gonna hear Sandra.
This is very exciting for me because let me tell you, I use my forum actually to get messages out to students that I want them to get instantaneously. Like for example, their grades or if it's an assignment. So it's not necessarily for a discussion. When I put it in the forum, I know that the students are in receipt of it. So I am comforted, falls there otherwise, that the information is there and it is used in the email address that that they are supposed to have, that the university says that they are to use. So
And that some of them don't use.
that some of them don't use. But so I use that prior to COVID to just send out messages that I wanted instantly. So that's what I use for. But I'm learning and I'm open. So thank you for this.
Very good, very good. Somebody else's hand was up.
No.
Okay, wonderful. All right, now guys, I love this. I love the interaction. I love the questions. I like the responses. I like the sharing component, and this is what we ought to be doing. We have some persons who have been doing this for a while, who have been fooling around. Look at how I spell evaluation. All right, so we want to be able to fix and to assist our students and to become, and again, I'm using, I think it was Sandra's comment, the most awesome virtual teacher. And this is one way of doing so. We learn from each other. We learn from our previous experiences, and we try things as we go along, and we need to spell properly.
Pauline is asking, what about the other kinds of forum? When do you use those?
All right, so let us just go and look very quickly at the other kinds of forum, and let me see how much I remember, because I tend to use just 2 types more than anything else. So the standard type is what we tend to use a lot when we work with the students. So one post is there and everybody responds or respond to other persons. But there is a question mark, which is also very useful to help me. So the single discussion is where everybody can reply, but it's not used in a separate group. So if the groups are separate, and I belong to Sandra's group and Charmaine belongs to Paula's group, I can only respond to the persons who are in my group. All right, so that is for the single simple discussion. The question and answer, we just did that one. The standard is set up like a blog. For those of us who blog, you know that it is an open, oh dear, let me disable my Dropbox.
Michelle,
Yes.
could you show the blog, please? Because that one, because I've noticed recently that a lot of people want that kind of thing. They want students to get into. I guess they see it as a way of getting students into blogging.
All right, let me just disable my Dropbox notifications because I realize that, all right, and that's not responding to me. Oh, there we go. So let us just snooze this for a while so that doesn't keep coming up on the screen. All right, so let us look at what the blog you said, Charmaine?
Yes, the
standard blog-like
format, yes.
All right, so just right, so I was saying that when we blog, we tend to post something. Oh, we need to put something now. I thought I just disabled that. Guys, I will take that off in a few. All right, and I have the standard blog type. Now what happens is, what am I?
missing. Oh.
Yeah.
I always do this, don't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do not kill me, OurVLE.
OurVLE, you should not agree.
All right. So what would normally happen is that, I'm just going to turn editing off, is that it's such a pity that we don't have other persons in this group. So I write my
Of dead, or the treaty is dead?
The treaty is dead. So this is me writing my responses. I go much faster if I write foolishness. And I deselect this, I post. I think it is not going to show me what it would look like.
Yes, it does.
Because no, it's not, because if somebody else were to add, so you know that when you set up a blog, it has like the dates and the topic that you write, and it has the information, and then it has a section for comments. It does in a way, doesn't it? So let me see if I can actually discuss. I cannot. I don't get it.
There's a section that said show thread that had to be done. So each time you go on, you see the, what was there before.
But what I'm trying to say is that because even if that is there, I still wouldn't be able to do anything else because of the role that Damien has.
Okay.
So what I can do is that I can set it up where as soon as I get my login details and share, so that you can see exactly what it looks like. But it looks like a blog that has the different sections, have the different dates, allow you to make a comment on it. And it's just set out as if you were writing a blog, but it has different persons who respond. And that is what it looks like. We tend to use it. God bless you. Thank you so much. We tend to use the blog format for more extended type of writing, for more critical thinking and reflective type pieces. Well, based on what I have seen. So that tends to require you not just simply responding to a question, but going into deeper reflection and introspection. And as such, those tend to be a little more lengthier than just a one word or responding to a set of questions kind of thing. But I will set one up so that you can see the format and how that operates.
Can you grade it, Michelle? I don't remember. Can you pull down the grading or rating tab?
For this one?
This one, I don't remember.
I think you can.
Because
I think you can rate every forum. Yes, you can.
People would want to rate it as
to give, yes.
Yes. So this is another way of encouraging deeper discussion and thought, and you know, as Michelle said, reflection, Paula Ann. So you can consider this one as well.
And the other thing about the rating, it doesn't have to be just points. So let me select that I am doing a rating, all right, and I'm doing a count. It doesn't have to be point. Scale is something that you could use. However, the scale, so there is a set of scales here, but you can create your own scales. And that is for another day in another session, but you can create your scale that has a range of comments rather than points, so that when you have students or you're responding, you can have something that says satisfactory, and satisfactory would say addresses most points, looks at so and so, and that scale is there so that when you select it, the student sees it and sees that it says satisfactory. There is a grade that is associated with satisfactory in the grade book, but what is more important is the explanation of what satisfactory means. So it doesn't have to just be a point, a numerical figure. It can also be, it doesn't have to be quantitative alone. It can also be qualitative, the kind of rating that is given. So I just wanted to point that out. And in the blog format, this kind of scale is usually very, very good to use.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Paula, and is that a new hand?
Yes, it's a new hand.
Okay. Okay. So Paula, a new hand. Oh, a new hand with lotion.
A new hand with lotion.
To Heather. Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Paula.
Still on the forum. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Pauline.
All right. So the one I did last semester was because in groups, they were to do audience analysis based on specific instructions. Now, instead of my critiquing to say, you did this right, you didn't do this right, I had everybody post, each group posted, and then the entire class had to respond. People had to respond on other groups' activities. Which of the forums is the best one for? So then that wouldn't be question and answer, because which of the options would be best if I'm using?
You can use any option for something like that. But if it's a case that you have individual students giving individual feedback.
Yes, it is.
The best thing to use for that would be the workshop.
Or the general forum.
Or the general forum. If you're sticking with the forum, the general forum works.
Okay.
But the workshop activity is designed for peer review.
I had difficulty with the workshop activity because it did not allow me to have the combination of group and peer. It was either all class.
It's individual, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, the forum would be the best one.
The best one.
And the standard forum would be good.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. We're going to jump to the quiz if there are no other questions for this one. And I want to do the quiz because there are so many different components to the quiz. And I know that you're going to have questions. So if there are no objections, can we go to the quiz? Or if there are no other comments or questions? I'll take silence to mean consent. All right, so let us
Somebody says yes, quiz.
Let us go to the Moodle quiz, the quiz that is set up. Again, I had turned my editing off, so let me turn it on. And I am going to set up a quiz. The quiz has so many different components that we probably can't go through all of them. So we'll do it one little step at a time. So for those of us who are working along, go to add an activity and click on quiz. And then you'll give your quiz a name. Please don't call it quiz 1 or quiz 2. Give it a specific name so that it is clear what the quiz is about. So we're going to call this best practices for resources in online teaching. All right. And if you want, you can put quiz at the end so that they know that it is a quiz. All right, you don't have to, but you can. Where it says instructions, this is where you give a general overview of what this particular quiz is about. So usually I have a little thing that have the name of the course. So let me call this one CETL 1001. Using OurVLE Tools, that's what we had called it. OurVLE, come on, OurVLE Tools in Teaching, because that is the name of the course. And then I tend to have best practices quiz. I tend to put the weighting, so let us say this is 15%. And then I have something that says instructions. And I put in the instructions that this quiz examines or focuses on
Unit 1 to 5.
Yeah, unit 1
to
5. And has multiple choice. I'm just going to put MCQ and short answers or whatever it is. All right. And then I say something like you have
1. All right, so blah, 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 all right. And then you put in make the instruction here as clear as possible, just as how when they get an exam paper and it has all of that information, you also do the same thing here, because that is what they will see when they open the paper. All right, so I'm going to put 15% here, and I'll stop here only because we're limited by time. By the way, you can just simply click this to open a wider window if you need it. And so I would put in, oh my goodness, I cannot type to save my life. You would put in all the details that you need, that the students will need to work with in order to successfully and easily do the paper. So this is all the instructions that I have in, right? The next thing that I need to go to is timing. Timing tells me when the quiz is going to be open, when the quiz is going to be closed, how long the quiz is going to run for, whether or not I'm giving students a grace period, all right? So if it is a graded task that goes towards their major assessments, I would say give the time. Yesterday we spoke about things like enabling additional time based on typing speed and so forth. So if a paper-based test was, let's say, 2 hours, for the online you probably want to give it 2.5 hours to take into consideration things like internet speed, bandwidth issues, typing speed, age. Not joking at you, OurVLE. All right, so we're going to enable. This test will begin tomorrow.
So you can still.
Thank you, OurVLE. So it will start tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So we're starting it at 2. And we're going to close it. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock. What time are we going to end this test, guys?
Let's say, well, tomorrow at 2, give them 24 hours.
So tomorrow at 2.
1400 hours.
Oh, 1400 as well. Very good. So even though the test is going to be open for 24 hours, it doesn't mean that the test is 24 hours. It simply means that the students who didn't get a chance to do it from earlier will have a chance to do it. But we are going to look at how we can actually minimize, not cut out, instances of cheating. All right. So the
I'm
time.
sorry. You need to change the date, because that quiz starts at 2 and ends at 2 of the same date.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, the 10th. Thank you. No, the next one.
It's the 10th. It's
right.
the 10th. Thank you so much. That's John Pierre.
No.
No, that's Michael.
Oh, Michael. Thank you very much. And this test is going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes. How long is that? How many minutes is that?
75.
75. So it's 75 minutes long. Of course, if you wanted to use the hours and so forth, you could just click the drop down and select. All right. We shouldn't be giving any student graded work that's lasting for weeks here. And if you decide to give them a grace period, you can decide that you'll give them a grace period of a day, or you can give them, if I enable it, why am I not able to enable it?
Could be because for quiz, we seldom get grace period. Get them retake, but they're not given grace period.
You can actually enable it. I'm not sure why it's not. I don't know why.
I wonder if it's because you are not.
It's enabled now.
Maybe because I wanted to change this. But all right, let's. I wonder if it's because of the. No, that's not it.
No, it doesn't matter. The next day, so.
But I know that we can do that because
yeah.
Now here where it says open attempts are submitted automatically.
Right.
That means that if the time runs out and the student did not click submit,
yes,
the answers would be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
This is a grace period when open attempts. So this is where they get, say, 15 minutes more, and I get a message that says you have 15 minutes more, you must submit now, or something like that. Or when the time runs out, That's it. They are not counted. You decide. Usually I select open attempts are submitted automatically because sometimes they're focusing so much on the questions that they don't see that the timer has run out. So where they are, I usually accept that. In the same way when they're writing, and if it's in pencil and they're supposed to have it in pen, we still accept it. So I usually leave that wherever they reach when the time runs out, the responses are accepted. But you decide depending on the purpose of your test and so forth, what you want to do. All right. Now for the grade, if you have set up your grade book, the categories would be here. So it may say something like major assessment, practice activity, that sort of thing. If your grade book has not been set up as yet, it will simply say uncategorized and everything is lumped under uncategorized. All right. Limit how many attempts are allowed.
One.
For major assessments, we usually say 1. For
1.
Practice, where you want them to get a feel of the real thing, you can give them 2. But we usually say 1. Please make sure you go in and click it because unlimited is the first thing there. And sometimes you think you click 1 and it remains at unlimited. So double check. Okay. And for the grading method, it would be the highest because they only have 1 attempt. If they had more than 1, you could change it to average, first, or last. But because they only have 1, this remains graded out. Yes, Paula?
Just a suggestion. I have a course where the students don't read the text. So to encourage them to read the text, there was a quiz after each lecture based on the upcoming readings, the readings for the next lecture, and about 3 or 4 attempts, because it wasn't about right or wrong, but about them going back to check, why is this wrong? So that encouraged them to do more checking with the text and to engage more with the content.
And in a case like that, it is quite appropriate because it's not a major assessment that goes towards that. Something where you're checking whether or not they've read the text and are applying. That is fine. You could even give them unlimited if you wanted to, because that is a different purpose. So again, it depends on why you are doing this particular quiz. All right. Now, layout has to do with the order and how the questions are shown on the page and how the students can move around. Now, as shown on the edit screen means that if you write question 1 and then question 2 and question 3, that is how it will show when the students see it. For things like multiple choice, for objective type questions or questions that don't have a long passage in there for students to respond to, I usually shuffle. So question
Michelle,
1, yes.
The new page for every question, I did that the last time because when you have 3, 4, 5 questions, then they can snapshot and send it to them friend.
Yeah, but
when
when
you
I
have,
reach that yet, I will.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a new page. No, but this is a new page for every question.
Yes, but when I reach there, so yet, I'm still on question order.
Okay, sorry.
I'm still here. I'm still on the first one.
He's showing you how with it he is, you see. But I know that everybody else is with it, and that is good this afternoon.
Sure, so it's a mad way.
It's a mad OurVLE. So back to the random shuffling. So whereas we really can cut out the cheating completely, what this does is that it reduces to an extent, because in a timed exam that you have, say 60 questions, my number 1 is not your number 1 and my number 1A is not your number 1A and so forth. So it reduces to an extent how that is done. Now, OurVLE, go ahead and talk about the new page every question thing.
No, to come back to the shuffle question. So it's okay to shuffle the question randomly. Now, in the model that we have, you also give it the option of shuffle within question.
Right.
So smart me think I could shuffle within question until the other question that said, so let's say Marx was born when A, B, C, and none of the above. You know which one come first shuffled? None of the above.
Right. So then again, of course, that speaks to the type of questions that you write, but the shuffling within as well too. You'd have to be mindful of the type of
the
question types that you have,
and
because
responses.
in a case where you have like a short passage for students to respond to, you wouldn't want to shuffle within that test, because it means that the questions will turn up somewhere and then the passage turns up somewhere else.
Yes.
So depending on the type of questions that you have to bear in mind. And OurVLE had started talking about
and the new question, the every question. So I used to think that it's so good to save the student time by putting packing 4, 5, 6 questions on a paper. Then a student said to me one day, "Sir, why put so much questions on one paper? Because it's easy for us to send just 3 pages to my friend. Rather than if you have 60 questions, 60 pages, that will take time. Never feel look at the exam because I do have that time.
Time will run out.
Yes. Babes and suckling.
My mommy used to say, is foul teach man how to tie rope on him foot. So it is because of these behaviors and these admissions that we have to come up with other ways to reduce the level of cheating among students.
Michelle,
so yes.
Can you write that one down for me when we finish?
It's foul teach man to tie rope on his foot.
So a new page for every question is a good way to go, because it means that students have less time to be downloading or copy or print screening
and
or forwarding. Exactly. So we tend to use this now more than that, because when we started out, we were saying, oh, it would be good if they just have everything on the same page. But as OurVLE pointed out, they are passing it on. And I don't think they realize that when I get 6 and my friend who I send it to get full marks, it doesn't do anything for me. All right. And then the navigation method, you have free and you have sequential. Free means that they can move to and fro throughout the paper, and sequential means that they can only go forward. I have used both, and I have resorted to leaving it as free, even though it means that they can go back to a question, because sometimes they skip a question in order to go through the ones that they find easier and then to come back. And if we leave, I'm coming to you, Michelle, if we leave it as sequential, it means that they can only go forward. So if they miss a question, they don't have the chance to go back. So I usually leave it at free, so that depending on what is happening, they can actually go back and address a question that they haven't done before the time goes out. Yes, Michelle?
When we have the question order and shuffled randomly, it's usually good that we have a huge test bank. Or, for example, if I'm giving a quiz of 10 questions and I have a bank of like 20 or 30 questions, it's good to choose from. But what I found interesting is that when we had the final exam to prepare last semester, and you have these bank of questions that you have to submit, and you have to submit them for review, you know, do you submit all of those questions that you have in the bank that you're going to be using on the test? So these are some of the things that you have to think about now. And then it would be a lot of questions, so it would be a lot for them to review, but any one of those questions could potentially come on the test, and if you want to create a good test.
Exactly. So, but who does the review?
The second marker.
Okay.
Or the second examiner. Like, you have to submit your paper in advance, and then they will review it and let you know. But I had a question regarding that, because if you're doing it online, and as I said, you have a lot of multiple choice questions, then this sometimes can create issues because it's more.
I am not an expert in the response to that, but one of the things that I can speak, which has to do with the general assessment with online, is that even if you're using a bank, the questions should be updated, meaning older questions are thrown out and new ones are added, because a bank that uses multiple choice and that where these responses can come up, students become familiar with them after a while, and then it reduces the integrity of the test when you have the same set of questions which have not been updated on a regular basis. But apart from just randomly shuffling within a particular test, I don't know if this version of Moodle allows that, but you can actually have randomization within questions. So you have like several question one type questions. So within the same, okay, wonderful. So that also helps in assisting. But in terms of the type of questions, I don't know if you want to help me out here, Charmaine. That bank would have to be updated regularly, especially if you're relying on multiple choice type questions.
That bank should reflect your teaching.
And the bank is new because we just started teaching online. So the bank is totally new.
Oh, okay.
For some people, we have banks from a long time. Some courses been using multiple choice for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, and in the cases that you have courses using it for a long time, it means that those questions, that bank would have to be updated.
You should, yes. You know, you can't just keep on adding to it. Some people add to it, but that still does not improve on the integrity of it.
What I think of best practice, that each time that you have an exam sitting, you make sure that you add at least 20 or 30 new questions to the bank to be involved in the shuffling.
Even when you add to the bank OurVLE, you should still remove some of the questions.
Yeah, should call some of them.
You should still be going through, looking at which questions students have handled well, which they have not handled very well, which are too simple, which you have used too
often, yes,
and so on. You should still, even when you add, you should still be doing that.
Yes.
And I see Sandra has a question. Will you be going through the process of selecting questions from your test bank?
Well, I don't know if there is a test bank here, any at all. We can test it. Remember that today I am Damien with very limited resources, but we can test and then we can do that here.
And Cassandra has her hand up.
And I noticed Michelle as well. So Cassandra and then Michelle.
Took hers down.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so quick question. So this is the quiz from OurVLE. That's where we do the post or final exams online? Because I didn't have any courses last.
No, the exam section of the registry. In recent time, that is starting from semester 2 last semester. Put up a canister for exam. So there is a section on the course page that is the exam section, and so and that's where you must post the quiz. Some of us had post the quiz at the other place first, like on OurVLE now. Then they said that then they decided to come out last time with the new exam canister. So they said that you really transport the things from that one to the new exam canister. What happened is that I couldn't find half of my students, 100 and something, out of about 300, because they had gone and done it on the other, in the OurVLE, not in the exam canister. So I then had to mark them there and then transport the grade over. So so I said to them, well, what we should is ensure we don't put it up on the OurVLE. So you save all your quiz exams and so until the exam canister is out before you upload.
And information like this would also be useful to staff. So, you know, for persons who are, what do I call them, coordinators? Yes, coordinators, you know, can liaise with the exam section and share this information. But I love the idea of a centralized section for exams, because normally what we do in class and what happens at the end of the semester for exam-based courses tend to be a different process. And I suspect that they probably have stricter protocols for exams in that kind of canister. I suspect, I don't know.
Yes, that gives exams the kind of control that exams need.
And remember the history as well, because someone might curse something 3 years from now, exam want to have it somewhere. where they know that that's where it was, and it is in the same format when the exam was done.
Exactly. Okay, good, good. Thank you very, very much for that, because I didn't know that. Okay. Michelle, I think your hand was up after Cassandra.
No, it's down now.
Okay, all right. All right.
I'm sorry, but I did have a question too. I don't know if you'd be able to cover it today or in another session.
Go ahead and ask.
How to export, you know, like when you have questions, a test bank from Wiley or Pearson.
How to do the export.
Yeah, instead of typing everything, because that takes a lot of time.
Well, actually, how to do your importing.
Importing, sorry.
Into this. You're exporting it from there into your test bank, right? We won't be able to do that today, but we definitely can look at that aspect as well as the randomization. So I just made a note of it, Charmaine, we have work. So import, export, and randomization. Okay. All right, question behavior. So this was what OurVLE was talking about earlier with the shuffling. How the questions behave. Now, this is important when you're setting up assessment that you're going to grade. Deferred feedback simply, in fact, because you notice that there are a number of them. You click the drop down beside the question mark and you get an overview of how they work. Essentially, you want to select deferred feedback so that when the students do the assessment before the test is up, they can change questions without being prompted or getting an idea of if it's correct or not, or getting feedback, okay? So we tend to select the deferred feedback because it means that they do not get a prompt or a check or a view response or anything before they move on, all right?
Also,
and
yes. The perspective where sometimes they allow this, like as happened in semester 2, they allow the student to sit the exam even though they didn't have financial clearance. So they made it specific to us that give deferred feedback. So the student can't see their responses immediately because they were, the university is concerned they wouldn't get their money.
Exactly, there you go. There you go. Now, the review options are usually very good. By default, everything tends to be ticked, but let me explain. For during the attempt, everything is grayed out because you don't necessarily want the students to have access to the right answer, the feedback, the marks, and so forth. Immediately after the attempt, before the quiz is closed, you probably don't want them to know whether or not it is correct, or the total number of marks, or the feedback if you put in feedback, or what is the right comment, or any of these. So I would usually leave it for the comment. Later, what is that, OurVLE?
Yes, I'll just leave the attempt.
While the quiz is still open, I leave just the attempt as well. So if I finish mine today, I don't get the answer and the feedback and the right answer so that I can share it with somebody who hasn't done it as yet. So I leave it at just the attempt for everything until after the quiz is closed. After the quiz is closed, they can see the attempt, they can see whether it was correct, they can see the right answer, they can see everything they want. They can see specific feedback and general feedback because the quiz is closed. There is no chance of anybody cheating at this point or sharing responses.
Again, of course, there's the administrative framework where if you might not want to tick all of those, if university allow them to do the quiz without paying, so therefore you want to limit what they can see after the quiz.
So how do you know which students have paid in your class?
Well, put it this way. Sometimes the exam section will indicate to you that we are allowing all them to sit it, but do not send out the exam results until they have gotten back to us from
okay. Okay, well, in a case like that, you simply leave it at the attempt and you tell them, you put up a little notice that let them know that the quiz is now closed and they will get the response, the feedback after X time.
Yeah, or
Okay.
sometimes give not only by exam. So exam is saying, let them finish, send us the grade. We will decide who see their results or not. Because responsibility, not us.
Okay, okay, okay. So there are a whole lot of little policies and guidelines that you have to be guided by when you're setting up your assessment in your course. And a lot of this is new to me because I'm just coming on board. So I am guided as well by this. Okay. So it means that you would have to have within your respective departments and units the kind of discussions that help you to decide how best to proceed when you're doing your assessments, especially when you have students who have been delinquent in this sense. This has to do with when you are looking at the grades and students' work, whether or not you want to see a picture, if they have pictures up. So I usually leave it at no image. The decimal place in the grade, so whether it's going to be 2 or whatever it is you decide on, and whether or not the decimal places in the question grid remain the same for everything, or if you select the changes. Usually I leave it as the same, so it makes life less complicated. Extra restrictions on attempts. So these are ways of trying again to reduce the instances of academic dishonesty. So you may decide to put a password in, and students only get the password when they log in. So you can decide whether or not that is something that you're putting in, or in the case that you are using an examination browser or certain protocols, students would not get it until they have done what they call things like environmental sweep to ensure that is them one in the room and that sort of thing.
Or if you're given a retake, then you may also require a password, because you only give a retake to 3 or 4 students and you send the password to those students.
There you go. So there's that too. I'm glad you mentioned the retake, because ideally students aren't supposed to get a carbon copy of the same thing. So where they get similar questions or questions in the same framework, ideally the retake should not be the exact same. I hate that combination.
But we have randomized. So for example,
where you have the randomization, it can work.
My exam was 60 questions, but I put in 120 questions.
Okay.
It's hardly likely that you're going to get something that's modest.
That's true. And in a case where you're giving them more than one attempt, you can decide that you are putting a delay on the first and the second attempts, or subsequent attempts. Overall feedback. Have you ever done a test or a quiz, and when you're finished, it tells you something like, oh, you got 62%, 65, and you get a feedback that says, oh, this is good, but you need to do some more? Or you get a grade that's a 98 and you get a feedback that says, excellent, now you're ready to move on and rule the world? This is where it is done by grade boundary. So for a student, you set it up. So you set what the boundaries are. So the very top is 100. And then for this one, I might put 85. So what this means is that if I get between 85 and 100, I can put a kind of or if I get between 85 and 100, I get a feedback that is very positive. All right. I probably wouldn't use such a wide band, but, and then for, let's say 60 to 84, I put a particular feedback here, and so forth. All right. And if you need to add more, so if it's from 0 to 20, I know that my feedback would say something like, okay, you got a lot of work to do. So students, based on whatever it is, so if I get 15, I know that my grade is going to say, you have a lot of work to do, put some more oomph into it, review your notes, that sort of thing. I find that this is very useful for students. My students have said that they really like especially since I put in things like memes and little images in there that congratulate them or give them the push. And so I have been using the overall feedback more, especially in practice cases, so that they get a chance to see how well they're doing and have an idea of what else they need to do instead of just getting a grade. All right. Common module settings is whether or not you show. This is in every one of them, and the restrict access and activity completion. Now we haven't started adding any content as yet. So we just set up the quiz. Now we're going to add questions. All right. It brought me
Christine
back
is asking you
here.
to show
Okay.
how to insert the meme.
All right, let me see if I can find a meme. So this is a high grade. So let me see if I can find one that I have on. So I go to insert image. So I probably want to say, all right, this is how it is done. You have exceeded your own expectations. Keep up the good work. All right, and then I go to insert an image or edit the image, but I'm inserting it first. And I'm going to look to see if I can find an image that, okay, let me browse. I have, let me go into Telfa's box. I think I had put some memes in here. Academic writing, oops, sorry. I had put some memes. Where did I put the memes? I'm just looking for, I have a set of memes. So
Show someone clicking their heels.
I'm sorry, go again.
And so you can just look for somebody clicking their heels.
Oh, you know
Why,
what?
OurVLE?
I can, I'm just going to put, I'm just going to look for another type of image because that's going to take me a little while. So I will go for.
Black man in a pink suit.
You want the black man in the pink suit? All right, so here's a thumbs up.
And
so
do you see that the black man in the pink suit looks
like OurVLE, don't it? You saw that too, don't you?
I did. I saw it.
I'm going to put
glasses and everything.
Wait 1 minute. Do not move OurVLE. OurVLE, do not move. Let me move him to the left and click insert. And I want to view him. Close your, let me just minimize that a little bit. I want to, yes, indeed. Doesn't that look like OurVLE? Oh my goodness. That's why you chose him, yeah?
There you go.
So, right, so the person would ask, so this is a little bit big, so I'm just making that a little smaller. I'll just change one thing. I'm making it 100 by probably 150. Not sure what that would look like, but let us see. Okay. And then I have my comment, and then I cannot see what it would look like, but when the student does it, it would show if the student gets close to 100%, this is what would come up with the comment. Now there are special memes. So if you have something like a Bitmoji account, those have a lovely set. And there is a session that I had on my list of how to use memes and badges in engaging your students. So we can probably look at that a little earlier for you. But that is how you would do it. And this is what the student would see. And all right, so now they're telling me that I have to put it in for everything. So let me just cancel that.
So okay. Colleagues, you see how much more you can do with these tools.
But
so
setting
far?
up your
Quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Are you saying if I put one in there, I have to put it in all of them?
Yes, because if not, you're gonna have difficulty launching it.
You mean, in setting up the information here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yes, the grade boundaries and stuff. Because let me see what it does. Because I think I should be able to no, it carry me back to the same page, don't it?
Oh.
Yeah, it's
you're going to fill them in, or you're going to have difficulty launching it.
Must be between 0 and 100%. I think this one is telling me that I need to add the percentage. Please, let that be all it is telling me. Yes. All right. So that is it. I have set up my instruction. I have set up my settings. And now in order to add questions, I would have to edit the quiz. All right. So this is where it has a question bank. No, it doesn't look as if there's anything in the question bank. All right, so this is where I would add my questions. So I don't have a bank to work with. The maximum grade would be the total of the test. So if the test is marked out to 30, I would put 30 here. All right, it tells me that the shuffle has been set because remember that I had set the shuffle when we were putting the information together. All right, so page 1, I am going to add a question. You could add a random question, but adding a random question takes away the control from you because it simply just puts a type of question in.
Anywhere.
So I add a question, and when I click on add a question, you realize that you have a whole heap of different type of questions. All right, so most types we tend to use the essay, the matching, the multiple choice, short answer, true, false, essay type questions, or essay already. So that's what we tend to use a lot. But again, depending on your purpose and the type of course that you do and what you want to do, you can choose from the other types. So let us put in a multiple choice. We're going to try and put in one of each here. All right, so let's put in a multiple choice. The question name is for you. So when we were setting up the feedback and we said that the label is just to assist you, just in case you need to make changes, the same thing goes here. So for multiple choice, we're gonna say, we're gonna call it resources, yes? And my multiple choice question goes here. What is the name of the resource that allows you to add a website link? All right, so that is the question. And then the mark that is allotted to it is 1, okay? You can put general feedback, but you don't have to. It depends again on what you're doing. Does it have one or multiple answer? This one only has one correct answer. Yes, it only have one correct. What is the name of the OurVLE resource that allows you to add a website link? Okay. So, the shuffle the answer is already on, and it will be ABC. So choice 1 will be page, and the choice 1 is incorrect. And because it is incorrect, we will have none for the grade. Feedback is anything that you want to say in case a student select the wrong response. So you can put a feedback in if you want. Choice 2 will be the correct response, which is the URL, because the URL is used for putting in web page links. And the grade is 100%. It is 100% because it's 100% because it is the
Correct answer.
Yes, it's the correct answer, and it's not partially correct. If it were partially correct, then you could select, say, 90% and so forth, and then that the computer would do the calculation. The third choice would be, let me say, what else is there? The book, and it depends on how many, whether you want to have 3, 4, 5, so you can decide. Normally, most multiple choice tend to have four responses, yes? And then another one here would be a resource. Come on, guys, we looked at resources. So let's just say the IMS content, all right? And we scroll down. Usually combined responses is giving you combined feedback, telling you that. I usually don't fool around with it. And multiple responses, if it's a case where you didn't select the deferred and they get a chance to answer more than once, it actually penalizes them every time their response. I usually leave that alone because this is just a one attempt thing. And then I save changes. When I do that, it enters the question. There it is, right there. It's marked out a 1 and whatever. I can add another question. So the other question that I'm going to add, we just did what? Multiple choice. We can put a short answer because we can shuffle a short answer question within this because we don't have to worry about where it goes. So short answer is going to be, we're gonna call it activity. And the question is this, name the activity plugin that allows students to make a selection. By the way, what is that called?
Nobody answering?
What is the thing that we use that allows students to make a selection? I cannot believe my students are letting me down like that. Nobody?
Can you not imagine, Michelle?
Does anybody remember us talking about the choice? And how you can use the choice for them to select like topics or
Michelle Black got it.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Congratulations, Michelle. All right, and you decide whether or not case is important. If it's a case that they have to write, start it with a capital letter so on, you would then select yes, because in that case, the case upper and lower case is important. All right, and then you're going to provide the correct response. So if we have choice and that is the correct response, it would be 100%. But let us say they write something like choices. You want to sort of give them, so you probably give them 50%. So they get half a mark. So in this case, it is worth 2 points. It's worth 2 points. If they get it correct, they would get the 2 points. If they write choices, they would get half mark. And if they write something like selection, you probably want to say, all right, fine, they were paying attention and give it like 20%. So it would give them, I don't even know 20% or 2 is so much. I don't do math very well. But it would assign a grade if they did put something that is close. All right, so that is your short answer in which you use the grade. All right, so that the first one is marked out of 1, the second one is marked out of 2. Let's add one more question. We're not going to add an essay. Well, we could add an essay type question because it's not dependent on a passage or anything. So we want them, essay simply means that they write more than just a limited thing. So we probably want them to give, it's a test. What kind of response to our time management? So this one is going to be time. It's an extended writing piece. I would put, give 3 advantages of organizing your time well in the online space. All right. And then for something like this, I would probably let it be marked out of 15. 3 is 9. Let's mark it out of 9. And they would get an HTML editor or plain text. I usually leave the HTML editor because then they can highlight anything that they want to highlight. And I expect the students to respond. So text input is optional, meaning that they don't have to respond, but I want them to respond. And I can decide on the box, the input of the box. So 15 lines tend to be decent, but you can just test it and look at it each time so that you have an idea of how large it is if it's X number of lines. I do not allow attachments for major assessments, so I tend to say no and leave that. Response template is, I'm trying to remember the response, this is relatively new. This is where they Any text entered will be displayed in the response box when a new attempt at the question starts. I am going to have to check this out, guys. This one is stumping me. I used it before. I do not remember how it works because I've gone through and fooled around with each of them to get more comfortable with it, but I really don't remember what the response template is. Has anybody ever used it?
No.
All right. And if you have tutors, you can put in some information for graders, because this would apply especially in courses that have several tutorials. So you would put that you need to bear in mind these things. And this is only the graders who tend to see this when you do that. And you save changes. Now we can do a preview. This gives us a preview, so we get a chance to see what 15 lines look like, which is pretty decent, yes? But if you want it bigger, you can actually go in and change the lines to more. If you want it less, you can go in and change. And you click close preview to close it. All right. And this is how you add your questions. Now, the sad part about this is that I cannot view it as a student so that you can see how the shuffle works and see how the questions are laid out and actually get a chance to test. But you keep adding questions. Now, for the things like labels, which would work as dividers, they would not apply here because you don't want the label to be also shuffling with the questions that you have. So things like labels, I would leave them out of a test that has shuffling throughout. If you set up save, let me go back to, what did I do wrong? Nothing. All right. So if I go back to the page, I can actually get a preview. So, before I do the preview, you notice that the information is here. This is what the students would also see. The quiz is not going to be available until this time because that was what we had set. And the quiz will close at this time because this is what we had selected, and we have the time 1 hour and 15 minutes, and the rest of the information would have been here for them to view: the name of the course, the weighting, and the instructions. So when I click preview, because you are the teacher and you're the person who set it up, you get a chance to preview. Students would not get a chance to preview. What they would see is something like attempt quiz now or start quiz now or something like that. But they do get something that says it is a limited test and it is limited to 1 attempt or how many attempts you want to give, and that you are about to start it. Do you wish to proceed? Okay. And when they click yes, the test comes up, and in this one, the first question is actually the essay type. And the second, and because we had set 1 at a time, I cannot see the other questions, right? And because I am the person who set it up, it also points out to me that I can preview it. But if it were a real attempt and if I were a student, it would be blocked because it is not yet available. So that kind of information helps you so that you can go in. All right, and then I would move through 1 at a time and I get a chance to test it. And then the next question, I would put in the answer here. Of course, I won't know what the grades look like as yet because I had set it to be released only at the end. Now, this is important to the students, and I tend to put this on the main page, that first page that give them the instructions. What you want to tell them is that when they are finished, they are supposed to click on submit all and finish. Okay, submit all and finish so that it can be recorded. So it then tells them that once you submit, you will no longer be able to change your answer. So they get this kind of confirmation as well. And then I would say yes. All right. And I think they get a summary just like this. They don't get the question, but they get a summary that tells them that this was when they started it, this was when they finished it, this is how long it took them. I'm just wondering if I were to click on new preview, if it would shuffle. Yes, it does.
So for me, it shuffles, which means that each time a student clicks to enter, they would get a different preview, a different starting point. And that is essentially how you set up your quiz. I don't know if there are any questions before we continue. Any questions, any comments, anything else that you wanted us to put into it?
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box, and I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, Sandra says she has got it.
Okay, I am happy, Sandra. And it may seem like a lot right now because we're going through and we're talking as we're going through, but one of the things that you can do is just try it one question at a time. I'm coming, OurVLE. One question at a time, and you preview it, and you go back and you change this, and you say to yourself, I wonder what will happen if I do this. And so you try that as well, and build on it a little by a little. Yes, OurVLE?
I'm just checking if what you have here is the version we have in OurVLE.
I'm in OurVLE.
Yeah, because the OurVLE one to me seems a little more detailed, but I wasn't following on it when I was, but I remember doing it, and it takes, it could be because I have much more questions as opposed to you, 60 questions. But
yeah, and I only have 3.
Right. So it took much more time. And also, if you are taking a question from a bank, like the question somebody asked earlier, if you're importing it from somewhere into the quiz, then that now is a whole new ball game in terms of how questions and how you set which one is
and
right,
how you organize it,
the correct one, and so on.
And there's something that I need to point out. You can when it comes on to duplicating quizzes so that you make changes, if you duplicate a quiz that exists and you change a question in it, it changes it in the original unless you add a question before you remove. So you can duplicate a quiz and you can add questions to it and remove. You cannot change an existing question. If you do that, it changes it in the quiz that you duplicated because it's the same question that's in the bank that you're changing. All right, so that is something.
Christine has a question.
Go ahead, Christine.
Can a student leave a question and then go back? I think that depends on how long you're leaving it for.
Yeah.
Well, she had showed the free.
I think the question is being asked if say a student has say internet issues or electricity, if the student leaves, if the student will be able to get back in.
No.
Is that the question, Christine?
She says no. Christine, could you tell us what specifically? Could you explain?
Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and OurVLE. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I just want to know simple. If, say, for instance, you have 60 questions like OurVLE, and you know questions may be difficult, can they go to the end and then backtrack to questions that they would have omitted before?
Yes.
She perhaps missed the point here.
Yes. So I have only 3 questions here, but let me just go back to the preview and show you what would happen. So we are going to pretend that is 60 questions, okay? So I did question 1, all right? I put in my answer. I don't know it for question 2, so I can go next, but I can go back. So I select this one. I can either go back here. So 1 has been done, but I didn't do 2. So I can click here to go back to the one that I didn't do, or I can go to the end. So if I click next, what it does, it tells me that I can return to attempt. So I can go back to the question that I didn't do. So that would be question 2. And if you notice too, there is what you call that?
a grading scheme, if you will. So 1 and 3 are grayed out, which means that I have completed those. So you can also tell this to the students, you know, if you want to go back and you realize that there's a question you missed, instead of going through all the pages, you can simply click on the one that is not highlighted or not colored, and that is the one that you haven't done as yet, or the ones that you haven't done as yet. So yes, students can go back and tackle the harder ones first and come back to the ones that they, or the easier ones first and come back to the ones that they didn't do within the time period.
But remember, this depends on how the lecturer sets up the quiz.
How the quiz is set up.
Exactly. Because you could set it that them can only progress and can't go back.
Exactly. So it depends on how it is set up. And it is good to tell them too. So you need to tell them that the quiz is set up in such a way that you cannot go back. So ensure that you complete each question before moving forward, so that they don't get any surprises in the middle of the test.
Yeah.
Sandra, is that
Sandra, right?
Yes.
I'm such a good student. I'm learning. So I was going to answer the Michelle's, what's her name, Christine's question, to say that in the setup you had selected free or sequential.
That is correct.
And go back to the question, and if it's sequential, they can only go forward. So I'm taking copious notes here.
I think you should move to the front of the class. You're a bright student.
I think so too.
Very, very good. And this was not a part of today's session, but you see, I want to show you guys something that you can use in your class as well. Memes aside, there is something, I don't know how many of you are aware of it and actually use it, that's called badges. So here we are. So the badges, oh, that's course badges. You want to be able to set up the badges. Am I not on the main page? Oh no, I'm not on the main page. So with badges, so I can set up my badges. Wrong section again, Michelle. Here we go. So I can manage badges. So I can set up some badges where I have students who participate or students who are more involved, and I can award a badge based on, who was that who answered just now? Sandra?
Sandra.
So I can have something that says most improved, and based on Sandra's performance, I can then award her a badge. And you'd be amazed at how crazy students go over these badges.
Sandra, don't jump now, don't jump.
I'm excited. Of course, I love badges and I love gifts.
Okay, so we can do a session of how to create a badge, how to create your badges, and how to assign them. You can set some badges so that once the students complete a task, it is automatically awarded, or you can manually assign a badge. So like for you, Sandra, who there's no task there that allows an automatic award of your badge, I would have to go in and say, oh, Sandra has been doing so well, and award you a badge. And you get something at your email that said, you have been awarded a badge. Congratulations, you got this. Oh, this is so ironic. This person is also setting up badges. So you can set up badges. So I'll also show you, Charmaine and I will just have a little session that you can join where you can use memes and badges to motivate and encourage your students in the classroom.
Well, Christine wants a badge for participation.
Why not?
And I want a badge that I can carry to Devon House and buy ice cream with.
Look at that. Look at the ambition.
Without food again, I'll leave it right here.
Thank you, Sandra.
Oh my goodness, I have no comments. Okay, guys. So it is almost
the Michelle
end.
Black wants to.
Oh my, what have I started? I have created little monsters.
There you go.
But all right, so the badge, and I use, for those of you who actually do the CUTL courses, I award badges. And this is how I know that not only younger students, but adults crave badges and really work. And because badges have that appealing, because they have that appealing, people tend to go through and work harder to get the badges. And so you can use them very strategically in your class. And we'll show you how to do that. Now, I did say that it would have been a hands-on session. and it has been very hands-on, and it has been very, very productive. And I think we have been very ambitious. They said that it was ambition that killed Caesar, and it is true. And so I realized that we are just about at the end of the session, and there are a few things that we needed to cover. More than likely, the repeat session is going to be just that, a repeat of this, given what we covered in today's session, which means that we will have to, as soon as we humanly can, organize additional sessions so that we can go through the other components, because I realize that we really haven't scratched the surface. So for today,
and there is Blackboard also,
and there is Blackboard, which we haven't touched. And with the Blackboard, I wanted us to go through not just setting up breakaway groups for group activities, but also how you could engage the students more in using like the whiteboard, have them write on the whiteboard in order to share comments. So in a face-to-face class, we would have them come up and respond on the board. In an online class, we also have a board that we can engage the students in responding and have discussions. So we definitely,
seems as if we'll have to do a completely separate session for Blackboard.
Yes.
People are, oh Lord, people are commenting on Blackboard here. Yes, please set a date for Blackboard. Yes, Blackboard, yes.
And we would definitely have to do Blackboard by itself. We can't include it with anything else.
We feel very confident in mastering it. So that we can feel confident in mastering Blackboard.
So yes, we will work, Charmaine and I will work on doing that as soon as possible, and we will contact the relevant units, but we have to have a discussion on how we're going to approach that. So listen out for us. But guys, I just wanted to say thank you, Charmaine. Thank you so much for being here in the session. As usual, you have been very, very active participants. I loved the sharing. And this is something that I have said before, and I'm sure I'll say again. We are on different aspects, different stages on that continuum, and the sharing helps so much. And we want you to know that although we are leading the sessions, we recognize that there is expertise in the faculties, and we want you to also help us to help you and your colleagues. So continue sharing, continue using your tips, sharing your tips, what works for you. And I love when OurVLE keeps saying that this is what happened in semester 2, because semester 2 for us is that point that have us, that deciding point that have us where we are right now.
The paradigm shift.
So yeah, exactly. So we look at that, and then Charmaine and I will have a discussion on how to move forward. But you have been great, guys, and I'm glad that you're learning. And Charmaine, I leave you to add anything that I may have outspoken myself with. Anything you want to say to the team?
And tell us how we're going to get the badge. How we're going to get the badge then.
Well, you know,
so this is Sandra.
OurVLE knows that I'm a hard taskmaster. Or task mistress, so it would be very hard to get badges from me, but I don't really have anything to add except to encourage colleagues to try out, you know, the tools, to try them out, and you know, try and incorporate their use as much as possible in teaching. I'm sure that what Michelle covered today has given you a lot of ideas if you weren't using some of the tools before, and some of the comments that colleagues have made will give you the encouragement also. So your classroom should look a bit different. I didn't even get onto the setting up of the room itself. I mean, look at how Michelle's room is, you know. It's not just materials posted, it's posted in a particular way to make it attractive. So we will be moving towards that as well, moving you towards that as well. So thank you, colleagues, for coming and for being attentive and for staying with the session. And we will be in touch as the semester goes on. Shout if you need something specific, shout to me or to Michelle. Okay? So colleagues, have a good, no, not ice cream. Colleagues, have a good afternoon, rest of the afternoon and evening.
All right, have a good evening, people.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.